Hi everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge and welcome to another romance recommendation video. Like I shared in my last video, if you watched it, I have just been in kind of like a darker place lately that just hasn't been super great for my mental health, and it was pointed out to me by some loving people in my life that maybe I just needed to step back a little bit from some of the darker romances that I was reading. Obviously, I'm not like never gonna read one again. There's still some that I'm reading now, but I'm wanting to dive more into my vast library of historical romances, as well as get back into some YA romance again. I really have not read much of it at all in the last year. I just haven't felt pulled to it or been intrigued by anything, but obviously I own tons of them and I want to give some of them a try. Like, look at all these. So in honor of that, I wanted to do kind of a sweeter romance recommendation for you. So these romances I have for you here, I think I have 7 of them. They all like made my heart hurt because they were just really sweet, or they were really poignant, or I felt like they said something really, speak to the softer side of me. So maybe this will be a nicer recommendation video for some of you who don't quite go as dark as that I have went, and I hope that you will like them. And if you like these, make sure to check out my recommendations playlist, because I have older recommendations from like, a year or 2 ago where I did almost exclusively lighter romances and stuff like that. So there definitely still is stuff for you on my channel if you don't want as dark as I get sometimes, right? So let's go ahead and dive in, and we'll start with some historical romances that I have, because one of these inspired me to make this video, of course, and that is The Secret by Julie Garwood. This, if you have been into the historical romance craze that's been happening lately, or maybe you've been a fan forever, you've probably heard of this book. This came out, I believe it was 1992 that it first came out. It did. And this is the first in the Highland Lairds, or maybe the Highland Fiancés one. I'm not sure. I can't remember. She has 2 series that are both in the Highlands, whatever. But this one is about Judith and Ian. And Judith is being sent to come stay with her best friend, Frances Catherine, his weird name, sorry, who is about to give birth. And Frances Catherine is very nervous to give birth because both her grandmother and her mother died in childbirth, giving birth to the next generation. And these two, who Frances Catherine is Scottish and Judith is English, were raised to hate each other, but they became friends at this borderland celebration that would happen every year. And so they became the bestest of friends, and Judith promised that she would come and stay with her when she had her first child. And so the time has come. Frances Catherine has been married for a few years, and so she asked her husband, asked his brother, who's the laird of their clan, if he will see about getting Judith and bringing her back. The entire clan is very speculative of this. Number 1, they don't want an English person coming to stay on their land, and number 2, they don't believe that she'll be honorable enough to honor her promise anyway, so what's the point in sending people to get her? Ian, wanting to please his brother and his brother's wife, is like, okay, I'll go with a couple of my elite warriors, we'll ask. If she says no, we'll come right back. It's gonna take me 3 weeks to do this, but I'll do it for you because you're my brother and she's my sister-in-law and I love her. And then the group meets Judith. These 4 men who go to pick her up, they meet her, and she is amazing. She has spent the last few years learning everything she can about midwifery, however you pronounce it, going against traditions to do that because she is a single, virgin who shouldn't know anything about childbirth, but she wanted to ease her friend's fears, and she does everything she can. And when these 4 burly, scary Scottish men show up, she is like, you're not gonna scare me, I'm going for my friend, you're not gonna scare me off, let's go. And so she leaves and goes with them, and quickly all the men in that group kind of fall for her, but specifically Ian does too, and he is kicking himself before they even get home because he's like, dang it, I want to marry her, and that's going to cause me a lot of problems because I'm the laird and she's English and this isn't going to go well. She also comes about and changes a lot about how they look at childbirth. She's done a lot of studying, like we said, and there are practices that were happening in this clan that are causing a lot of mortality of the women and the children, and her being an untried woman, nobody wants to listen to her, but she is like, hey, the way you're doing things is stupid, and do you want your women to live or do you want them to die? Like, just stop it. So anyway, I ranted about this book enough. Plenty of people love this book. Jess from Peace Love Books, Lacey from Lacey's Book Lovers, just all the people. It's great. This is also my our book club pick for my channel this month. So if you watch this video and want to get in on it, please do. I just finished it this weekend and I can't wait for us to talk about it at my live show, which is the third Sunday in September. I'll put it up here. And you could join in. It's going to be really fun. So there you go. The Secret. Then I want to talk about First Comes Scandal by Julia Quinn. So this is a weird place to start with Julia Quinn, and I could have picked a lot of other Julia Quinns, but when I was thinking of what was the sweetest one I read, this one really came to mind. This was her newest book. This is also the fourth and last book in like a series, but you really can read this one independent of anything else because it doesn't even really mention the couples that coupled up before this one. So you really could start with this. Like, most of hers you can, but you really can. And I love Julia Quinn, so I wouldn't steer you wrong with it. But this is about Georgina Bridgerton, and she's a spinster, and she was assaulted by someone she thought was her friend. And not, like, really bad, but he was trying to ruin her reputation more than actually, like, hurt her. Because he needs her dowry, because the Bridgertons are pretty wealthy, and her godfather is a Rokesby, and he's also really wealthy. And so this guy compromises her, and so now she either has to marry him or go live in the spinster house. And she's like, why? I didn't do anything. He's the one who came after me and, you know, assaulted me. Why is this happening? And her family's like, we know it's not fair, but we need to find you a husband or else you have to do this. And she doesn't want to marry the guy who did this to her. So her godfather, is either Earl of Rokesby, I'm not sure, but he calls home his youngest son, Nicholas, who is training to become a doctor in Edinburgh. And so he brings him home and he says, Nicholas, I am Georgina's godfather, and I don't want her to have to marry the guy who did this to her, and I don't want her to be a spinster. You don't have a wife yet. You're going to marry her. And Nicholas is like, I don't have time for a wife. I'm going to school to be a doctor. I don't have time for a wife. And the father's like, you don't have to take her with you. It's fine, but you need to marry her because it's the right thing to do. And we're her family and we need to do this. And Nicholas is just like, no, I don't want to do it. And then Georgina finds out that he was supposed to marry her. And she's like, I don't want to marry you. And then of course he's like, why don't you want to marry me? And she's like, because we're friends. I don't want to marry you. And they end up married, obviously. So this is really cute. They are both virgins. So we have a virgin hero. It's really cute. She also has a bunch of cats that they're trying to transport to their new home, which is really funny. And they're friends. And this is totally a friends to lovers. And it's really cute. And I just really liked it. And so I feel like I've grown out of Julia Quinn in some aspects, but I will still always read her new books. I can't wait for the TV show that's going to come out for the Bridgertons. And her books are just really sweet. And if you don't want something that's super raunchy or over the top, like, Julia Quinn is a great place to go for that. So I'll always want to suggest her. All right, and then a couple more historical. Most of these are historical, actually. So then I used to talk about this book a lot in the beginning of my series too. But if we're talking about sweet romances and just heartwarming, I have to talk about Redeeming Love by Francie Rivers. This book, guys, this book is so beautiful. It will probably mean more to you if you're a Christian than if you're not, because this is heavily based on Hosea from the Bible. In fact, the hero in our book is actually called Michael Hosea, and like his namesake from the Bible, he has been asking God to show him who his wife is. And so he keeps asking for that, and then one day when he's in town, because he has a homestead, and so he's in town like selling some things, God tells him that this one girl is it, and she goes by the name Angel, and she's a prostitute. And Michael's like, well, that's not who I was expecting you would tell me to marry. Okay. So but he agrees. So he goes to see Angel and he pays for his time to be with her, but he just sits there and talks to her. And Angel tries to goad him. She says, I'm not going to marry you. I like the life that I'm living, but he can see that that's not true. And so he continues to pursue her and pursue her. And eventually she agrees to marry him and move to his homestead with him. And she's expecting to basically be his slave. Like, that's what she's used to. That's what she's been taught. That's what men have showed her again and again and again. And not just men. Women, too, have shown her that. But that's not what Michael is looking for, and that's not the man that he is. And his relentless pursuit of her is showing you how God wants to pursue us. And it's really powerful and really beautiful. And it's one of the sweetest romances I've ever seen. And I ugly cried through so much of it because it really does speak to you. Especially if you are a person of faith, it's really amazing. So, also, so you know, this takes place in 1850 in California's gold country. So, it's also an American West historical romance. So, there's that. It's amazing. Then, I'll just show this real quick. But I just wanted to, because talking about sweet romances, I had to do it. And that's Pride and Prejudice. Also, I want to show off my cover of this. This is one of the Penguin special covers. So there's this, and then it's a full, this is Mr. Wickham on the back, and then there's Darcy and Elizabeth. These books are beautiful, but it's Pride and Prejudice. It's one of the greatest hate to loves ever. The first hate to love. No, I'm just kidding, not the first, but one of the best. And it's awesome. So if you haven't yet, if you're putting off reading a classic, this is a great place to start. Just do it. It's one of only 3 classics that I actively like because I'm not a huge fan. Okay, so this one's going to be kind of a out of nowhere, but this one is also kind of a classic. It was first written in 1903, which is kind of awesome. I think so, yeah. Yes, it was written in 1903. This is Pearl Maiden by H. Rider Haggard. So this is about a Jewish woman named Miriam and a Roman officer named Marcus. This takes place in like 100 AD. Takes place in Jerusalem. And it's about this girl who, it's just her and her nurse. There's pictures in this book too. It's really cool. Let me see if I can find one. And she falls in love with this Roman officer. But she can't marry him because he's not Jewish or a Christian. And he could make her marry him. He could take her as a slave if he wanted to. But he respects her too much and he loves her too much to force her to love him. And so they get separated multiple times. They get separated and brought back together, and separated and brought back together. And it's never the right time for them. Miriam becomes a slave at one point because Christians are being persecuted in this place. This is a really powerful love story. And it's also a beautiful story of a woman of faith. And I love this book. This book, I read this the first time in like 9th or 10th grade. It's me and my friend Sarah, one of our favorite books that we share together. And I think it's just such a beautiful, beautiful story. So again, this will probably be more to you if you're a person of faith. But it's also just a really beautiful love story. And the things that Miriam has to go through and the way that she has to like stand up for herself and fight for what she believes in, even against the person that she loves so much, is just really powerful, and it really speaks to me. So Pearl Maiden, if you like classics, there's a reason as well. So H.R. Rider, I've never read any of his other books, but I know he also has one called like King Solomon's Mines. It's like pretty popular or something. So then I have Letters to the Lost by Bridget Kimmerer. This book I read because it is one of my friend Murphy Napier, one of her favorite YA contemporary books. This is about Juliet and Declan, and Declan is a troubled youth, and he has community service at a cemetery right now. This is the same cemetery that Juliet's mother is buried at. Juliet's going through a tough time, and so she leaves a letter to her mother at the gravestone, and Declan reads it, and he can't help but answer her. And so he goes by, you know, a different name when he answers it, and he knows who's leaving the letters, obviously, and so it's a case of you know, one person identity. So this is, you know, this is a epistolatory romance as well, and of course she's like first super mad that he would dare read her letter to her mother, but it ends up being cathartic for both of them to have someone to write to. And you know, Declan isn't sure if he can be brave enough to tell her who he is, because they have a pretty antagonistic relationship out of their letters, and so he's really nervous to tell her who he is. But it's a really beautiful story. I really enjoy it, and it's just a really sweet romance of people who are grieving. There are trigger warnings for this, obviously, of death and loss, so be advised of that. But it was a really cathartic book to read, and I just really love their romance. And for, you know, not reading too much of this kind of story anymore, it still like draws to me like how powerful the story is. And then the last one I want to bring up which is, oh, I love this. This is a double romance, and it also has a little bit of fantasy involved. This is The Lovely War by Julie Berry, and this is about two different romances during World War I and II. And so one of them is between these two that they meet the day that the man is supposed to go to war. And then the other couple is they are a interracial couple. The man, he plays in the band, and he is African-American from New Orleans, and she is a beautiful white woman who is a nurse. And they end up with a connection, and it's really dangerous for them to have that connection because there are lots of people who don't want them to be together. But this story is so unique because the entire story is told from the perspective of gods. It's told from the perspective of Aphrodite, Ares, Zeus, Hades, and Hephaestus. So this book starts with Hephaestus finding his wife, Aphrodite, cheating on him with Ares. And she's kind of on trial to him. Like, he wants her to prove that love is real and that the job that she does bringing people together is actually valuable, because he sees love as a curse, because he loves her and she isn't like loving him back the way that he wants her to. So she tells these two different stories of people loving in a time of war as like kind of proving why love is a good thing, even if it hurts. It's hard to explain it and sell this, but just like hearing this from the point of view of the gods and goddesses is amazing. And it's told kind of like a black and white movie. So the like breaks in it will have like these black and white spots. So it says like Overture, Act 2. And then there'll be like a scene break where we jump back to something else. So this is amazing. You're probably gonna cry. The people I've suggested this to, they range from, oh, I love it, to, I hate you, why'd you do this to me? So just be warned. I might be making you suffer, but I love you, and there's this for you. So there you go. There is just a couple of the sweetest romances that I've ever read that are on a lower steam level. Most of these don't have much at all, so you don't have to have that in your story if you don't want to, because I definitely understand that. Sometimes it's not all about the smut and the steam, and even though that is usually like a preference for me, sometimes it's nice to just get lost in the words and not be worrying about other things. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed these recommendations. Let me know if you've read any of them and what your favorite sweet romances are. Thank you so much for watching, and if you want to see some more of my videos, you can watch them right now.